to just say a general thing about this because I was really thinking about this week because a few different people sent me the videos that are going around about solar flares. I don't know if some of you have seen these. Some got posted on the forum, and then some people wrote me very anxious because, there's all this information out there now that we're in this heightened time of solar flares and, expect more disruption, more uranian, unpredictability, who knows what might happen, anything could happen. And I just have to tell you my own way that I look at all this. One person wrote me, and I know when people do this, that they're just scared, like they're just like wanting reassurance. But part of what it really made me think of, first of all, I'm not denying the existence of solar flares. I mean, scientists are going in and they're charting this and they're showing that this year in 2023 and in 2024 we're having, accelerated more solar flares than ever. But one of the videos that I was watching, that was, really, I could tell as people were watching it, they were getting more and more scared. One thing that the person said who was making the video was she was like, well, in 2018 and 2019, we had no solar flare activity, but now we have like, I don't know what it was, like 20 times that or 100 times that. And I was laughing because 2018 and 2019, for me, I can easily go back to those years. Trump was in office. The level of anxiety that was going on in this country, of all the, every day you'd wake up, you never knew which group was going to be targeted next with all these draconian measures. And that was when there were no solar activity. So the way that I look at all this is that there will always be something. There will always be something. Because part of why I run this forum isn't really primarily to teach the astrology, even though I have to because it's in my blood. But the real purpose is to help anybody who's genuinely interested learn how to connect to that divine flow. So whether there are Uranus transits or Pluto transits or Saturn squares or a million solar flares or none or whatever, some part of you over time starts to trust how to move with the flow. And it really does simply take practice. I think somebody just put on the forum page today, I was just glancing through right before the call, and I don't even know who it was, but somebody wrote, I've been here 3 years and I'm finally starting to understand surrender. And in a culture that is always saying, make it happen, get yourself safe, grab this, grab that, what if this, what if that, what if it's the next eclipse is bad, what if it's Mercury retrograde, in a culture that's just permeated with that, it can take 3 years to learn how to surrender, or it can take 3 days. It takes as long as it takes, but that's the trajectory of what's happening here. And that surrender, as you know, doesn't mean doing nothing or being passive or just going to bed. It means allowing, kind of allowing the flow to do its thing. And part of allowing the flow to do its thing is trusting that you're inviting the flow to show you at any given moment the right actions. That's always part of inviting the flow to take over. If you say, letting the divine take the lead, what does it mean? It means inviting the flow to take over for the highest good and to use each of us in that flow to play the role that we're meant to play. And trust me, if you repeatedly invite that, and if you make that the priority, miraculous things happen. And sometimes one of the people that wrote me about the solar flares, she said, well, you know, I just don't know how to stay safe under all these transits. And I was like, well, I get that, but something happens. I know it happened to me, and it can happen to anybody who is sincere with this kind of focus. It started to become that the ultimate safety was the offering. The ultimate safety wasn't figuring out every single transit and every single, variable, and, having and joining endless groups to figure out where I could hide. The safety became making that deepest invitation to the divine flow and saying, carry me in that flow and always guide the right actions. And I know this in my heart that anybody who sincerely does that over time, something larger than your own fears and anxieties start to take over. And I may have I may have mentioned this before, but it was a while ago. You can almost look at these turning points in your life where it becomes unbearable for the ego to be in the lead. It literally becomes unbearable. So you may be terrified of letting go, but you're more terrified or more exhausted by the idea of not letting go because you're literally carrying a burden that's too big to fathom. And I remember one of the times that that happened to me, and I may have mentioned this ages ago, but if you remember back when the nuclear reactor melted down in Japan, and there was this whole thing. I was living in California at the time, and there was this whole thing about, oh, all the radioactivity is going to be headed to California, these news stories. And I had a friend at the time living in New York who was very anxiety prone anyway. And she started calling me, I mean, out of love, but calling me day and night and day and night, saying, you have to leave California. You have to. The radiation is coming. You have to move to New York. You have to get out of there. And, and even, my spirit guides are telling me to tell you, you have to get out of there. And it was under that time, it was one of many events over the last couple decades where I really had to go inside of my own Shakti into that still, quiet place that we started with. And I'd ask myself from that still, quiet place, am I supposed to leave California right now? And all I would get was no, no, be still and trust what's happening. Now, other times, there were very clear messages from that still place, get moving, it's the time. I mean, that happened when I had to move, to buy this place. It was like, was I supposed to buy? Wasn't. The market was crazy, blah, blah. And I went to that still place and it was like, get it now. Don't waste a moment. Buy it now. So, when you go to that place, and all I'm saying is it takes practice, but that to me is the point. And the transits are the icing on the cake. They will show you when the latest bus is arriving, they will show you when the bus is departing. But in the end, I do believe the divine will trumps every transit. And even under the most adverse transits, miracles have occurred in my life. And I know that other people that this has happened to, you're simply putting yourself in the flow and praying for the openness to be a vehicle for that flow. So, this is a great week to practice that.